You know, there's a specific sound that a rubber wheel makes on polished marble floors, a squeak, followed by a low rumble, that becomes the soundtrack of your life when you're invisible. For Elias Thorne, that sound was his heartbeat. 54 years old, wearing a grey jumpsuit that had been washed one too many times, pushing a yellow cleaning cart through the 4th to 7th floor of the Apex Meridian Tower in Manhattan. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the air in the office didn't smell like work. It smelled like aged leather, expensive cologne, and that distinct, crisp scent of money being printed. Elias wasn't supposed to be seen. That was the unwritten rule of the night shift. You clean the glass, you empty the shredders, and you vanish before the masters of the universe look up from their Bloomberg terminals. But tonight was different. Tonight, Julian Sterling, the 30-something billionaire CEO of Sterling Apex Capital, was hosting his annual Titans Gala right there in the main trading floor. We are talking guys in suits that cost more than Elias's car, women dripping in diamonds, sipping champagne that tasted like rent money. And Elias. He was just trying to get to the trash can in the corner without making eye contact. But life has a funny way of putting you in the spotlight exactly when you're trying to hide in the shadows. Hey, you, the mop guy. The voice cut through the ambient jazz music like a whip. Elias froze. His hands tightened on the handle of his cart. He didn't turn around immediately, hoping, praying, it was someone else. But then he felt it, that heavy silence that falls over a room when the predator decides to play with its food. I'm talking to you, boss. The voice came again, closer this time. Elias turned slowly. Julian Sterling was standing there, holding a crystal glass, his face flushed with alcohol and arrogance. He was flanked by his entourage, young, hungry analysts who laughed at his jokes before the punchlines even landed. Julian flashed that $1,000,000 smile, the kind that never quite reaches the eyes. We are having a debate here, Julian said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. He gestured to the 50 or so investors watching. My friends here think the market is all about complex algorithms and predictive AI. But I said, no, the market is visceral. It's a gut feeling. Even the guy scrubbing the toilets probably has a theory. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not a kind laugh. A sharp, jagged laugh. Elias felt the heat rise up his. For 15 years, I've been the invisible man in this building, and I've learned more from your garbage than you've learned from your Ivy League degrees. Security. Julian barked, his voice cracking. Get him out. He's lying. He's stealing company secrets. It's not stealing if you throw it away, Elias said calmly. It's public domain once it hits the curb. The security guards started to move in, but a voice booming from the back of the room stopped them cold. Wait. It was the older man who had been watching. Arthur Vance. A legend on Wall Street. The kind of guy who moved markets just by sneezing. He walked through the crowd, the sea of tuxedos parting for him. He stopped in front of Elias, studying his face with intensity. I know you, Arthur said, his eyes narrowing. It's been, what? 20 years? The hair is grey, and you've lost weight, but I know that cadence. You're Elias Thorne. Elias sighed, a sound of infinite weariness. Hello, Arthur. Elias Thorne. Julian sputtered. Who is that? A failed broker. Arthur Vance turned to Julian, his expression one of pure disgust. You really don't know your history, do you, boy? Elias Thorne isn't a failed broker. In 2006, he was the head of quantitative analysis at Sovereign Stanley. He was the math magician. He wrote the Thorne Protocol, the memo that predicted the housing crash down to the exact week it would happen. Gasps went through the room. People started whispering. The Thorne Protocol? That was him. He tried to warn the board, Arthur continued, looking back at Elias with respect. He told them to get out of subprime mortgages. They laughed at him. They called him a pessimist. They fired him for insubordination and blacklisted him from the industry to cover their own incompetence. When the market crashed 2 years later, just like he said it would, they made him the scapegoat. I thought you moved to London, Elias. I thought you retired. I had legal fees, Elias said quietly. Divorce. Medical bills. The blacklist was effective. Arthur. No one would hire me. I lost the house. I lost everything. I took what work I could get. Turns out, cleaning floors is quiet work. Gives a man time to think. Julian looked panicked now. He pulled out his phone, frantically tapping on his trading app. This is ridiculous. He's a janitor. He's been out of the game for 15 years. And yet, Elias said, locking eyes with Julian one last time, I'm willing to bet my next paycheck against your watch that AstraZeneca opens down 30 points tomorrow. Are you confident enough to keep your position open, Julian? Or are you going to listen to the mop guy? The room hung in suspension. Julian stared at his phone, sweat beading on his forehead. His thumb hovered over the sell button. His arrogance was battling his fear, and fear was winning. The tension in that room was so thick you could have choked on it. Julian Sterling, the golden boy of Wall Street, was sweating through his $5,000 suit, thumb hovering over his phone screen, while Elias Thorne stood there in his grey jumpsuit, calm as a monk. Well? Elias asked, tilting his head. The after-hours market closes in 4 minutes. Julian. Tick-tock. Julian swore under his breath, a vicious, ugly sound, and furiously tapped his screen. Sell. 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 He liquidated the positions. Millions of dollars moving in seconds. He looked up, his face twisted in humiliation. There. I'm out. Happy. Now get out of my building before I have you arrested for corporate espionage. I was leaving anyway, Elias said, turning back to his cart. My shift ends at 10. He pushed the cart toward the service elevator, the squeak of the wheel the only sound in the room. No one stopped him. No one applauded. They were too stunned. But as the elevator doors closed, he saw Arthur Vance staring at him, typing something rapidly into his own phone. The next morning, the world didn't just turn, it tilted. Elias was sitting at his small kitchen table in Queens, watching the news on a tiny TV while Sophie ate her cereal. The headline on CNBC screamed in red, Pharma giant crashes, FDA halts AstraZeneca trials. The stock had opened down 42%. If Julian had held his position, he would have lost $70 million in 10 minutes. Then, at 10 a.m., the second shoe dropped. Mid-Atlantic Ledger Bank suspended trading pending a regulatory announcement regarding liquidity concerns. They were insolvent, just like Elias said. Elias sipped his cheap instant coffee, feeling a grim sense of satisfaction. He wasn't rich, but he was right. And sometimes, being right is the only meal you get to eat. His phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Elias. The voice was gruff, familiar. It's Arthur Vance. Don't hang up. I'm not looking for charity, Arthur, Elias said, watching Sophie struggle with a cough. I just want to be left alone. I'm not offering charity, Arthur snapped. I'm offering a job. I was at the gala last night. I liquidated my positions in Astra and Mid-Atlantic 5 minutes after you walked out. You saved my firm about $100 million, Elias. Julian Sterling, on the other hand. Well, word is his investors are pulling out. He's facing a liquidity crisis of his own. He saved his capital, but he lost his reputation. No one trusts a man who gets outsmarted by his janitor. Elias stayed silent. I'm opening a new division, Arthur continued. Forensic market analysis. I don't need guys who look at spreadsheets. I need guys who look at the trash. I need guys who see what's hidden. I want you to run it. I'm 54, Arthur. I have a record. I'm radioactive, remember? You were right, Arthur corrected. That makes you valuable. The blacklist is over. I'm offering you a base salary of $300,000, plus bonuses, and full medical benefits starting day one. No waiting period. Full medical benefits. Elias looked at Sophie. She smiled at him, milk on her chin, then took a wheezy breath. That inhaler. That $800 piece of plastic that stood between her and the emergency room. Full benefits. Elias asked, his voice cracking slightly. Family included, Arthur promised. Dental, vision, the works. Come in at noon. Wear a suit, Elias. Or wear the jumpsuit. I don't care. Just bring that brain of yours. Elias hung up the phone. He sat there for a long minute, looking at his rough hands. Then, he put his face in his palms and wept. Not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming relief of a burden being lifted after 15 years of carrying it alone. When Elias walked into the Vance & Company building at noon, Wearing an old suit he'd dug out of the back of his closet, slightly tight at the shoulders but pressed clean, the lobby didn't feel threatening anymore. He took the elevator up, not the service car, but the main glass pod. When he stepped onto the trading floor, silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't the silence of invisibility. It was the silence of respect. Heads turned. Young analysts stopped typing. They knew who he was. The story had leaked. The janitor of Wall Street, who took down Julian Sterling. Arthur Vance met him at the glass doors. He shook Elias's hand, a firm, equal grip. "Welcome back," Arthur said. But the story doesn't end with a handshake. 3 weeks later, Julian Sterling was fired by his own board. His fund had suffered massive withdrawals after the story went viral, because here's the thing about Wall Street: they can forgive losing money, but they can't forgive looking stupid. And ignoring the genius in the room because of the uniform he wore. That was unforgivable stupidity. Elias didn't just take the job. He excelled. But he did something else, too. Every Tuesday night, he stayed late. Not to trade, but to teach. He started a free seminar in the company cafeteria for the support staff, the janitors, the security guards, the cafeteria workers. He taught them financial literacy. He taught them